Thud. The sound of the first shovel of dirt hitting the wood was heavy. Wet. Final. The rain slicked the black mud of the burial grounds into a trap, threatening to drag anyone standing too close down into the earth. Clara didn't step back. She couldn't. Her feet were numbness in the slush, her cheap black coat soaking through at the shoulders. She shivered, but not from the cold. It was the eyes. The whole pack watched her, but they didn't see her. They saw a ghost. They saw the Luna they lost, not the spare twin left behind. In the quiet, a throat cleared. Clara. It wasn't a comfort. It was a command. Elder Thomas stood beside her, holding a piece of paper miraculously dry under a plastic cover. He didn't offer a tissue. He held out a pen. The Alliance must hold, he said, his voice flat. The Alpha needs a mate. The Pack needs a Luna. It is the law. Her sister wasn't even cold yet. Actually, she was. She was in the box 6 feet down. Clara stared at the contract. The ink looked like a black scar against the white page. This was her life now. Not a person. A spare part pulled from storage because the original failed. Sign it, Thomas pressed. Her hand trembled as she took the pen. She looked across the open grave. On the other side stood Alpha Bram. He was rigid, unmoving against the storm. Rain dripped from his dark hair, plastering it to his skull. He wasn't looking at the coffin anymore. The moment their eyes locked, her breath hitched. Hate. It burned in his golden eyes. He looked at her face, her sister's face, and looked like he wanted to scream. Or kill. Whatever remained of her heart withered. A sob rose in her throat, but she swallowed it down. She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of him. If she was going to be the replacement, she had to be made of stone. She pressed the pen to the paper. Scritch. Scratch. The sound cut through the noise of the rain. Done, she whispered. Her voice sounded foreign. To make things worse, Bram didn't even nod. He turned his back on her, on the grave, on everything. He walked toward the tree lean, shoulders hunched against the world. She was married. And she had never felt more alone.
Crash. The heavy oak desk flipped, papers scattering across the room like ash. A glass lamp shattered against the stone fireplace, sending crystal shards skittering across the floor. It wasn't enough. The noise couldn't drown out the roaring in his head. Bram panted, chest heaving. His wolf clawed at his ribs, demanding to run, to hunt, to find her. But she was gone. His Elena was gone. And in her place, Alpha. The voice was measured. Calculated. Bram spun around. A growl vibrated in his chest. Silas stood in the doorway. His beta. His best friend. Silas didn't flinch at the destruction. He stepped over a broken chair leg, his expression unaffected. Get out, Bram snarled. I can't do that, Silas said. The ceremony is in an hour. Bram slammed his fist into the wall. Plaster cracked. I won't do it. I can't look at her, Silas. It's sick. The moon goddess is mocking me. She gave me a mirror image of my dead wife, but empty. It's torture. It is duty, Silas countered. He walked closer, stepped silent. Think of the pack, Bram. The Southern Alliance will crumble without a Luna. They see a grieving Alpha with no heir and no mate. They see a target. Do you want more graves next to Elena's? That hit the mark. Bram closed his eyes. The pain was a hollow ache radiating outward. She isn't Elena, Bram whispered. She smells wrong. She looks faded. Dull. She is a vessel, Silas said. He placed a hand on Bram's shoulder. That is all. You don't have to love her. You don't even have to like her. You just have to stand next to her. Let the pack see the face. Let them see stability. Even so, the thought of touching her made his skin crawl. I promised Elena, Bram choked out. I promised her forever. And you keep that promise by protecting her legacy, Silas urged. By protecting the pack she loved. Marry the girl. Ignore her. Bid her only for an heir when the time comes, if you must. But do not let everything Elena built turn to ash because you cannot do what is necessary. Weak. The word snapped something inside him. Bram opened his eyes. The gold fire was gone, replaced by a dull, iron resolve. Fine, he said. The word felt like grit in his teeth. Get the girl ready. But warn her, she is walking into a tomb, not a marriage.
Hold still. The maid tugged the corset strings. I can't breathe, Clara gasped. Then don't, the maid muttered. She didn't sound sorry. She sounded annoyed, as if dressing Clara was a chore, like scrubbing a stubborn stain. Clara looked in the mirror. The reflection wasn't her. It was a mannequin. Pale, terrified, stuffed into a dress that cost more than Clara had made in her entire life. White silk, dripping with pearls. It was Elena's dress. They hadn't even bothered to alter it. It doesn't fit, Clara whispered. She tugged at the bodice. Her shoulders were broader than Elena's, her arms more muscular from working the pack gardens, while Elena had planned parties. It fits enough, the maid snapped. She pinned a veil into Clara's hair, pulling a strand tight enough to sting. Stop fidgeting. You look exactly like her. That's the point. That's the point. The words echoed in her skull. Be Elena. Be the good twin. Be the perfect Luna. Resentment flared in her chest. Small, but hot. She had spent 24 years as the shadow. Was she going to spend the rest of her life as a haunting? I said, it doesn't fit. The maid turned away to grab the bouquet. Without thinking, Clara grabbed the delicate lace at her shoulder. She didn't mean to destroy it. She just wanted room. She wanted to feel like she owned her own skin. Re-yip. The sound was sharp in the silent room. The lace gave way. A small tear, right at the neckline. It wasn't ruined, but it was imperfect now. Jagged. The maid spun around, mouth agape. What did you do? The Alpha will be furious. Clara stared at the tear. For the first time all day, her lungs fully expanded against the silk. Let him be furious, Clara said. Her voice shook, but she held her chin up. I'm the one wearing it. And if I have to walk to my doom, I'm going to do it being able to breathe. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe it was just her wolf finally waking up from the grief. Give me the flowers, Clara commanded. She didn't wait. She snatched the bouquet of white lilies, funeral flowers, from the maid's hands. She turned to the door. Her legs felt heavy, her stomach tight. But she walked. She walked because she had no other choice. She walked toward the man who wished she was dead instead of her sister.
The doors to the great hall creaked open. Every head turned. The pack stood in rows of black and gray, watching the entrance. Bram stood at the altar, hands clasped behind his back to hide the tremors. Then, she stepped into the light. Bram felt the air leave his lungs. For a second, just a split second, his heart leaped. Elena. It was her face. Her walk. Her golden hair. But then, he saw the eyes. Elena's eyes had been soft, full of laughter. Clara's were dark. Watchful. There was a hardness there that Elena never possessed. And the dress, it was torn. A jagged rip at the shoulder. Elena would never have walked down the aisle with a flaw in her gown. She walked toward him, and the closer she got, the more his wolf paced inside his mind. Mate? The beast questioned. Not mate? It was confusing. Maddening. She reached the altar. She didn't look at the crowd. She looked straight at him. Terrified, yes, but she didn't look away. Alpha, she whispered. He had to touch her. The ceremony required it. The bond had to be sealed with skin on skin before the pack. Slowly, reluctantly, Bram reached out. He took her hand. Zap. It wasn't the warm, honey-sweet heat he felt with Elena. This was a shock. A static jolt that snapped against his palm, sharp and biting. Raw energy. He hated it. He dropped her hand the moment the spark faded. He saw her flinch, hurt flashing across her face, but he couldn't bring himself to care. He felt dirty. He felt like an adulterer standing over his wife's fresh grave. The elder droned on about duty and lineage. Bram didn't hear a word. He just stared at the woman who was now legally his. I do, she said when prompted. Her voice was barely a breeze. Bram's jaw tightened. He looked at Silas in the front row. Silas nodded, a small, grim encouragement. I do, Bram ground out. The elder beamed. I present to you, Alpha Bram and Luna Clara. Applause rippled through the room. Polite. Muted. Bram leaned in. He was supposed to kiss her. That was the tradition. But he couldn't. He stopped inches from her face. He could smell her, lilies and rain, and something sharper, steel. He moved his mouth to her ear instead. The crowd probably thought he was whispering words of comfort. Do not think this makes you mine, he hissed, voice low and dangerous. You are in her house. You are wearing her clothes. But you will never, never have her place. He pulled back. Clara didn't cry. She went pale, eyes widening, but she didn't shatter. She stood there, unsteady but upright, refusing to break. And for some reason, that made him hate her even more.
The door clicked shut. It was a small sound, but it felt deafening in the massive master suite. Clara stood with her back against the dark wood. The room was cold. Not just temperature cold, it felt spiritually void. The massive four-poster bed sat in the center like a shrine to a dead goddess, the sheets perfectly smooth, untouched since. Clara shook her head. She couldn't finish the thought. Don't get comfortable. The voice came from the shadows near the balcony. Bram stepped into the moonlight. He still wore his ceremonial suit, though the tie hung loose around his neck. He was breathing hard, as if he had run miles to get here just to tell her she wasn't wanted. I didn't ask for this, Clara said softly. She forced her eyes to meet his. Neither did I. He moved closer. He didn't walk, he stalked. You look like her, he said. His voice was a low rumble, dangerous and broken. You walk like her. You even have her chin. He reached out, fingers hovering inches from her face, shaking. But you are empty. A shell. Clara flinched. He wasn't just grieving. He was haunted. I am not empty, she whispered. I am Clara. Clara. He tested the name like a curse. Clara the Spare. Clara the Shadow. He slammed his hand against the wall beside her head. His scent enveloped her, pine, rain, and raw, agonizing fury. It made her wolf whimper, confused. Mate? Enemy? Listen to me, Bram snarled, face inches from hers. I died with her. My heart is in that ground. You are just a treaty with a heartbeat. Do not expect love. Do not expect warmth. And do not, ever, think you can replace her in this bed. The air between them crackled. He pulled back as if she had burned him. He looked at the bed, then at her, revulsion twisting his features. I will sleep in the study, he spat. Stay out of my way. She let him go. She watched him storm out, the door slamming behind him with enough force to rattle the windows. Silence returned. Heavy. Suffocating. Clara looked at the bed. It looked soft, inviting. But she was a trespasser in a mausoleum. If she slept there, she would be the monster he thought she was. Instead, she went to the linen closet. She pulled out a simple woolen blanket, walked to the far corner of the room near the cold fireplace, and curled up on the hard rug. No matter how hard she fought it, the tears came. She wasn't the Luna here. She was just a girl locked in a room with a ghost.
Sunlight glared against his eyelids. Bram groaned, shifting in the leather chair that had served as his bed. His neck was stiff, his back aching. But the physical pain was a welcome distraction from the emptiness in his chest. The nightmare faded, Elena reaching for him, then dissolving into ash, and he sat up. Work. He needed work. He grabbed a stack of border reports. Numbers. Troop movements. Things that didn't feel. Things that didn't have dark eyes that looked at him with terrifying resilience. Knock. Knock. Enter, he barked. A young patrol wolf, Jenkins, poked his head in. Alpha? The report on the eastern perimeter. What about it? Bram snapped. Well, sir, we missed a scheduled check because, well, the wedding festivities. The tension broke. Bram was on his feet in a second. Missed, he roared. You missed a security check because you were drinking to my misery? Because you were celebrating a sham? Jenkins went pale. No, Alpha. I just meant. Get out. Bram slammed his hand on the desk. Double the patrols. If a single rogue slips past because you were too busy toasting the new Luna, I will rip your throat out myself. Jenkins fled. Bram sank back into his chair, rubbing his temples. He was losing his grip. Worse, he could smell her. Even here, 2 floors down, he could smell her. Not the lilies she had carried, but the scent underneath. Sage. Wildflowers. Something earthy. It drifted in through the open window. Drawn by it, he stood and walked to the glass. He looked down into the gardens. Elena used to be there every morning. She would wear a sun hat, pruning the white roses, singing to herself. Bram looked, expecting to see nothing. Or to see Clara trying to mimic her sister, awkwardly holding shears. But then, he saw her. Clara was there. But she wasn't pruning roses. She stood near the old oak tree, wearing oversized training leathers that swallowed her frame. In her hand wasn't a flower, it was a dagger. A silver blade glinting in the sun. With a single glance, he saw her move. She didn't move like Elena. Elena drifted like a breeze. Clara moved like a whip, sharp, fast. She threw the dagger. Thwack. It buried itself deep in the bark, dead center of a marked circle. Bram froze. His chest ached. Not with grief this time, but with shock. Elena couldn't hold a knife to save her life. She needed protecting. She needed him. Clara walked to the tree, yanked the blade free with a grunt of effort, and wiped the sap on her leg. She looked fierce. She looked capable. Something inside him shifted. It was a dangerous thought. If she didn't need his protection, then what was he for? He turned away from the window, snapping the blinds shut. He blocked out the sun. He blocked out the girl with the knife. She is nothing, he told the empty room. Just a tree. But his wolf wasn't listening. His wolf was pacing, interested.
The kitchen was chaos. Pots clanged, steam hissed, and voices shouted over the din. It smelled of roasting meat and baking bread. Clara stepped inside, hoping for a distraction. Hoping to be useful. The room fell instantly silent. Every eye turned to her. The cooks froze mid-chop. The scullery maids dropped their sponges. Luna, the head cook, a stout woman named Martha, said stiffly. She wiped her hands on her apron but didn't bow. We weren't expecting you. Breakfast is sent up to the solar. I know, Clara said, trying to keep her voice steady. I wanted to discuss the menu for the week. Since I'm taking over the household duties. Martha exchanged a look with the sous chef. A look that asked, does she really think she's in charge? The menu is set, Luna, Martha said dismissively. It's the same menu Elena, may she rest in peace, approved 3 years ago. Alpha Bram likes routine. The air thickened. I'm sure he does, Clara said, stepping forward. But we are entering winter. We should switch to heavier stews for the patrol guards. They need the protein. The Alpha likes the roast chicken, Martha said, turning her back. We stick to the list. Clara stood there, face burning. It wasn't just Bram. The whole pack treated her like a substitute teacher who didn't know the lesson plan. Before she could speak, before she could demand respect, a presence appeared at her side. Now, Martha, a smooth voice purred. Is that any way to treat the new mistress of the house? Silas. He glided into the kitchen. He smiled at Clara, but his expression was a mask. Cold. Calculating. Beta Silas, Martha stuttered, immediately bowing her head. I only meant. I know what you meant, Silas soothed. He turned to Clara. Forgive them, Luna Clara. They are, set in their ways. Grief makes creatures of habit. His tone suggested she was the inconvenience, not them. I just want to help, Clara said tightly. And you shall, Silas said. He stepped closer, invading her personal space just enough to be unsettling. In fact, if you want to please the Alpha, he hates being disturbed in the mornings. But he takes his tea in the library at 4 p.m. Alone. He might appreciate a quiet companion. Elena used to read to him. Her instincts surged. Something about the advice felt off. Too easy. Read to him? Clara asked. Poetry, Silas said, eyes glinting. He loves the old verses. It might soften him to you. Still, Clara nodded. She was desperate for a connection. Desperate to stop being the invisible enemy in her own home. Thank you, Silas, she said. Anything for the pack, Silas replied. As he walked away, Clara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty kitchen. She looked at the clock. 4 p.m. She would try. She didn't know what scared her more, that Bram would reject her again, or that Silas was the only one smiling at her. Because of that, she missed the smirk on Martha's face. She missed the fact that 4 p.m. was not tea time. 4 p.m. was when the Alpha met with the War Council. And Elena was never, ever allowed in the war room. Clara turned to leave, her hand brushing the doorframe. She had a plan. She had a time. She had no idea she was walking straight into the fire.
The war room smelled of stale coffee and aggression. The rogues are hitting the northern ridge, General Kale growled, slamming a heavy fist onto the map. We need to send a strike team. Wipe them out. Bram rubbed his temples. The headache behind his eyes pulsed with every heartbeat. The northern ridge is unstable this time of year, Bram countered, his voice low. If we send heavy units, we trigger a mudslide. We lose more wolves to the mountain than to the enemy. So we do nothing? Kale challenged. We look weak? As the quiet settled, Bram felt the itch of his wolf wanting to assert dominance. He opened his mouth to issue a command. Creak. The heavy oak doors swung open. Every head turned. Clara stood there. She wasn't wearing armor. She wore a soft, knitted cardigan that hung loose on her frame, clutching a leather-bound book to her chest. She looked out of place. The room went from tactical tension to stunned mockery. Am I interrupting? She whispered. Bram felt a flash of irritation heat his neck. This is a war council, he snarled, standing up. Who let you in? Clara blinked, her gaze darting to Silas, who sat in the corner. Silas looked up, his face a mask of polite confusion. I thought it was tea time, Clara stammered, cheeks flushing crimson. I was told. Snickers rippled through the generals. Tea time? Kale laughed, a harsh, barking sound. The little Luna wants a crumpet while we discuss bloodshed. Bram's hands curled into fists. He wanted to protect her, not because he cared, but because she was his territory. But before he could roar at them to get out, Clara straightened. Something inside her shifted. She stepped into the room. She didn't retreat. She walked right up to the map, ignoring Cale's sneer. "The northern ridge," she said, voice shaking but gaining volume. "You can't take the main pass. The rain last week washed out the shale." Bram froze. "How do you know that?" "I ran it," she said. "Yesterday. My wolf, she likes the rough terrain. The ground is soup. Heavy units will sink." She pointed a slender finger to a narrow, jagged line on the map. "But the goat path here, it's solid rock. If you send a light scout team, you can flank them from above without triggering the slide." The moment their eyes locked, Bram saw it again. That steel. Cale looked at the map, then at Bram. She might be right. That path is narrow, but stable. Bram looked at her. Really looked at her. Elena wouldn't know a goat path from a highway. Elena would have fainted at the mention of a strike team. "Go," Bram commanded the room, never breaking eye contact with Clara. "Prep the scout team. Use the goat path." The generals shuffled out, murmuring. As the door clicked shut, they were alone. "You shouldn't be here," Bram said, but the heat was gone from his voice. "I know," Clara replied, clutching her book tighter. "I won't make the mistake again." Without another word, she turned and left. Bram stared at the closed door. Her scent, sage and determination, lingered. And for the first time, his wolf didn't growl at the thought of her. It whined. It wanted to follow.
Her heart hammered against her ribs. Clara leaned against the closed door of the guest room, trying to catch her breath. She had humiliated herself. But she had also won. She looked at her hands. They trembled. Not from fear. From adrenaline. She couldn't sit still. The room felt too small, too unfamiliar, filled with boxes of extra things from the main house. She started pacing. Creak. She stopped. Stepped back. Creak. It came from the floorboard near the window seat. Clara knelt. The wood here was older, the varnish worn away. She ran her fingers along the groove. Loose. She wedged her fingernails into the gap and pulled. It popped up with a dusty groan. Inside was a hollow space lined with velvet. And sitting there, hidden away, was a small, leather-bound journal. Clara's breath hitched. She knew this book. Elena used to carry it everywhere when they were teenagers. Her dream diary. Clara reached in and took it. It felt cold. Heavy. She opened it to the last entry, dated 3 days before the accident. The handwriting was jagged. Rushed. Not Elena's usual perfect loops. "He watches me. I see him in the reflection of the glass at night. Bram thinks I'm paranoid. He thinks it's just the stress of the treaty. But I know. I smell him. Sulfur and rot. He isn't a rogue. He's one of us. And he knows what I saw." Clara read it again. The room suddenly felt very, very cold. Sulfur and rot. Elena didn't die from a fall. She was hunted. Worse, she suspected someone close. One of us. Clara slammed the book shut as footsteps approached in the hallway. She shoved the journal under her mattress just as a knock sounded. "Luna?" It was Silas. Again. "Are you decent?" Clara scrambled to stand, smoothing her skirt. "Yes. Come in." Silas opened the door, carrying a tray of tea. "I heard about the war room," he said, face full of sympathy. "I am so sorry, Clara. I must have mixed up the times. I feel terrible." She searched his voice for a lie. But he looked so genuine. So helpful. It's fine, Clara lied, her heart hammering against the secret beneath her mattress. I survived. You did more than survive, Silas murmured, placing the tray down. You surprised them. Be careful, Clara. Surprises make people nervous. Shadows seemed to gather in the corners of the room. Was that a warning? Or a threat? I'll keep that in mind, she said. As he left, Clara locked the door. She looked at the mattress. She wasn't just a replacement anymore. She was a detective. And she was living in a house with a killer.
The dining hall was too big for two people. The long mahogany table stretched out between them. Candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Bram cut into his steak. It was rare. Bloody. Just the way Elena liked it. The kitchen staff, in their infinite resistance to change, had served Clara the exact same thing. Scrape. Bram looked up. Clara was pushing the meat around her plate. She looked green. It's Wagyu, Bram said, breaking the quiet. Elena's favorite. Clara looked up, eyes dark and tired. I know. You aren't eating. I don't eat red meat, she said quietly. Bram paused, fork hovering. You're a wolf. We are carnivores. I eat chicken. Fish, she said, eyeing the bloody pool on her plate with undisguised nausea. When we were kids. Elena got the prime cuts. I got the scraps. Usually gristle or bone broth. My stomach, it doesn't handle the heavy stuff well. The image of her fractured. Bram had spent the last 3 days layering Elena's ghost over Clara's body. He assumed she liked the same wine, the same flowers, the same food. But then, he realized the cruelty of it. She wasn't refusing the food to be difficult. She was refusing it because she had grown up hungry while his wife grew up feasting. A pang of guilt struck him. Sharp. Unexpected. Bram stood up. Clara flinched, leaning back as if expecting a blow. Her body moved on instinct, a defensive curl. Bram walked to her side of the table. He reached down and took her plate. Alpha, she whispered, confused. He walked to the sideboard, where a platter of grilled river trout sat. He plated the fish and some greens. Simple food. He walked back and placed it in front of her. Eat, he said gruffly, returning to his seat. Clara stared at the fish. Then at him. There was no hatred in her eyes this time. Just surprise. And gratitude? Thank you, she said softly. Don't thank me for feeding you, Bram muttered, focusing on his wine. It's bare minimum. As they ate in silence, the air felt different. Less charged. He watched her eat. She did so with efficiency, savoring every bite, not like a princess, but like a survivor. She wasn't Elena. And for the first time in a year. Bram thought that might be a good thing. But then, a howl ripped through the night. It wasn't mournful. It was an alarm. Perimeter breach. The shout came from the gardens. Bram was moving before the glass in the windows stopped rattling. Stay here, he ordered. But he knew, even as he ran for the door, that she wouldn't listen. And he wasn't surprised when he heard her footsteps behind him.
The forest was a blur of green and gray. Clara's paws hit the earth with a rhythm that felt like freedom. Thud. 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 She pushed harder. This was the annual pack run. Usually, it was a ceremony, a slow, dignified trot to show unity. But tonight, the air was thick with tension because of the alarm. The breach had been declared a false alarm, but the wolves were edgy. The run had turned into a race. Clara wasn't supposed to be in front. The Luna was supposed to run beside the Alpha, matching his pace, looking pretty and submissive. But her wolf took over. Her wolf didn't care about politics. Her wolf was silver, scarred from years of neglect, and desperate to burn off the fear living in Clara's gut. She was fast. Faster than the heavy warriors. With every stride, she pulled ahead. Wind whipped through her fur. For the first time in her life, she wasn't Clara the Spare. She was lightning. A massive dark shadow appeared on her left. Bram. His wolf was huge, midnight black with eyes like burning gold. He wasn't running to show off. He was running to catch her. He let out a low, warning growl that vibrated in her bones. Slow down. Instead, she sped up. Maybe it was the anger at being told what to eat. Maybe it was the fear of the journal hidden under her mattress. Or maybe, she just wanted him to see her. Not the ghost. The path narrowed. A fallen log blocked the way. It was high. Too high for a normal wolf. Her body moved on instinct. She didn't stop. She gathered her hind legs and launched. Soar. She cleared it with inches to spare. She felt powerful. Alive. Then, she heard the snap of a twig. It didn't sound like a paw. It sounded like a boot. Before she could land, a scent hit her nose. Not pine. Not wolf. Sulfur. Her pulse hammered. It was the smell from the journal. She landed hard, stumbling, claws digging into the dirt to stop. She spun around, ears flattening against her skull. Bram landed beside her. He hadn't smelled it, he was too focused on her. He shifted, bones cracking and reshaping until he was a man again, naked and furious, stalking toward her wolf form. Clara, he roared. You reckless little. Suddenly, the air whistled.
Shift, Bram ordered, chest heaving. Now. He was furious. He was terrified. She had run like a demon. Elena used to trip over tree roots. Elena hated to run. But Clara ran like she was born to hunt. It made his blood burn with something that felt dangerously like pride. He watched her silver wolf shimmer and fade. Bram threw his spare cloak over her as her human skin replaced the fur. She was panting, hair wild, dirt smudged on her cheek. She didn't look down. She looked right at him. I heard something, she gasped, clutching the cloak. You heard the wind, Bram snapped. He stepped closer, invading her space. You ran too far ahead. You left the guard perimeter. Do you have any idea how exposed you were? I'm not defenseless, she shot back. The air between them grew heavy. He grabbed her arms. He meant to shake her, to make her understand the danger. Instead, he pulled her closer. Her scent washed over him. Rain. Sage. And heat. It wasn't Elena. The world shifted. He didn't see his dead wife. He saw Clara. He saw the fire in her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. His gaze dropped to her lips. They were parted, red from the cold. He leaned in. The world narrowed down to her mouth. He wanted to taste her. He needed to know if she tasted as wild as she ran. Bram. She whispered. A warning? An invitation? Her breath caught. His lips brushed hers, a feather-light touch that sent a jolt of electricity straight to his groin. Snap. It wasn't a twig this time. It was the distinct, mechanical click of a bowstring release. Bram's combat instincts took over. He didn't think. Down. He tackled her. A black arrow hissed through the air exactly where her head had been a second ago. Thwack. It buried itself in the tree trunk with a sickening vibration. Bram hit the dirt, covering her body with his own. He pressed her face into the leaves, shielding her. Silence fell. Stay down, he snarled, voice guttural. Don't move. He looked at the arrow. The fletching was painted red. The tip was dripping with a green liquid. Wolfsbane. Concentrated. Realization hit him like a physical blow. They weren't shooting at the Alpha. They were shooting at Clara.
The bedroom door was locked. The curtains were drawn. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, shivering. She wasn't cold. She was in shock. Bram paced the floor. He was fully dressed now, but he looked like a caged animal. Every few seconds, he would look at her, check that she was still breathing, and then go back to pacing. It was poison, he said, voice tight. Enough to kill a bear. If that had scratched you. He didn't finish the sentence. Clara knew he was blaming himself. It wasn't an accident, Clara whispered. Bram stopped. He looked at her. No. It wasn't. Someone wants to destabilize the pack. Taking out the new Luna. No, Clara interrupted. She stood up. Her legs felt weak, but she forced them to hold her. They don't want to destabilize the pack, Bram. They want to finish the job. The room went still. Bram narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Clara walked to the mattress. She reached underneath and pulled out the book. Bram stiffened. That's Elena's, he said, voice cracking. Read the last entry, Clara said. She held it out. Her hand was steady now. Please. Though he looked like he wanted to run, he took the book. He opened it. Clara watched his face as he read. She saw the confusion, then the shock, and finally, the horror. Sulfur and rot, he read aloud. I smelled it, Clara said, stepping closer. In the woods. Just before the arrow. I smelled sulfur. Bram, she didn't fall. She was murdered. Color drained from his face. He looked at the book, then at Clara. The anger was gone. The distance was gone. You're the target, he whispered. Because you look like her. Or because they think you know. Between them, the wall he had built finally cracked. I can't lose you, he said. The words seemed to surprise him. I can't. I can't do another funeral, Clara. He crossed the distance between them. He didn't kiss her. He pulled her into his arms. He buried his face in her neck, holding her so tight it almost hurt. Her chest ached. It wasn't a romantic embrace. It was desperate. It was two survivors clinging to each other on a sinking ship. We find him, Bram growled against her skin. We find him, and I kill him. Clara rested her head on his shoulder. We find him, she agreed. Then, a thought chilled her. Silas knew she had the book. Silas knew she was in the woods. She didn't know what scared her more, the arrow in the tree, or the fact that the person holding the bow might be the man Bram trusted most.
The Alpha's office felt like a cage. Bram stood by the window, staring out at the tree line where the arrow had struck. He didn't hear the door open. We scrubbed the perimeter, Silas said. His voice was calm. Too calm. No tracks. No scent. Whoever it was, they were a ghost. Bram turned around slowly. Ghosts don't shoot arrows tipped with grade A wolfsbane, Bram said, voice low. That poison came from our stores, Silas. The armory is locked. Only 3 people have the key. Silas walked to the liquor cabinet and poured 2 drinks. He didn't look worried. He looked disappointed. Are you suggesting one of us tried to kill the Luna? Silas asked softly. He slid a glass across the desk. Or, is there another explanation? Bram ignored the drink. What other explanation? Silas sighed. Clara was the one who found the danger, Silas said, taking a sip, eyes watching Bram over the rim of the glass. She ran ahead. She lured you there. She was the one who smelled the sulfur when you, an alpha with superior senses, smelled nothing. The implication hung in the air like smoke. You think she staged it? Bram asked. His voice was dangerous. I think she is a frightened girl living in a dead woman's shadow, Silas countered smoothly. Desperate for attention. Desperate for you to look at her as something other than a spare part. A hero, perhaps? For a split second, Bram's old instincts flared. It made sense. Clara was desperate. But then, he remembered the look in her eyes in the bedroom. The terror when she handed him the book. The way she shook. You couldn't fake that kind of visceral fear. Something inside him shifted. He didn't trust Silas. The realization was a cold bucket of water. He had trusted Silas with his life, with his grief, but now? She didn't stage it, Bram said. His tone was final. Silas paused. A flicker of annoyance crossed his face, gone in an instant. You seem attached, Silas observed. Careful, Bram. Emotions cloud judgment. Without another word, Bram walked to the door. He needed air. He needed to be away from the poison in Silas's voice. Doubling the guard isn't enough, Bram said, hand on the latch. I'm moving her into my room. Tonight. Silas's glass clinked hard against the desk. Your room? Silas asked sharply. Elena's room? My room, Bram corrected. And Silas? If anyone gets close to her again, I won't be looking for ghosts. I'll be looking at the men holding the keys. He didn't know what scared him more, the threat to Clara's life, or the look of cold calculation on his best friend's face as he closed the door.
Rain lashed against the library windows. Tap. 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 Inside, the only light came from the fireplace and the small lamp on the desk. Clara turned another page of the pack registry. Anything? Bram asked. He sat in the armchair opposite her, a glass of whiskey balancing on his knee. He had discarded his jacket hours ago. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing thick forearms scarred from battles she could only imagine. Her chest ached. He was beautiful like a thunderstorm. Dangerous, but impossible to look away from. Nothing yet, Clara sighed, rubbing her eyes. The shift logs for the armory match the guard rotation. No gaps. Silas manages the roster, Bram said. His voice was heavy. Reluctant. You believe me, Clara whispered. It wasn't a question. Bram looked up. The golden fire in his eyes had softened to molten honey. I believe you, he said. I didn't want to. It's easier to think you're crazy than to think I'm being betrayed by my own beta. But I saw your face in the woods. He leaned forward. You aren't Elena, he said softly. Clara froze. I know. No, Bram shook his head. I mean, I'm glad. Elena would have frozen. She would have waited for me to save her. You jumped a 6-foot log and tried to fight a sniper. A laugh bubbled up in her throat. It was a rusty sound. I didn't try to fight him, Clara smiled weakly. I just didn't know which way to run. Suddenly, Bram smiled. It was the first time she had seen it. A real smile. It transformed his face, lifting years of grief off his shoulders. You're a terrible liar, Clara Valerius. The air between them crackled. He wasn't looking at her like a replacement. He was looking at her. I'm not Valerius anymore, she whispered. I'm Thorn. Technically. Technically, he agreed. He reached across the small table. His rough fingers brushed the back of her hand. Her breath caught. The spark was there, the mate bond, but this time, he didn't pull away. He let it hum between them. A promise. We should sleep, he said, voice rough. We have the solstice ball tomorrow. If Silas is making a move, he'll do it when the whole pack is watching. Neither of them moved. I don't want to go back to the guest room, Clara admitted. The words were out before she could stop them. You aren't, Bram said. You're staying with me. Her heart skipped. On the couch, she asked. Bram stood up, extending his hand. We'll figure it out, he said. She took his hand. As they walked out of the library, the shadows seemed a little less dark. She wasn't fighting alone anymore.
Morning light filtered through the heavy curtains. Bram woke slowly. He wasn't in the chair. He was in the bed. And he wasn't alone. Clara was curled up on the far side of the massive mattress, buried under a mountain of quilts. They hadn't touched. He had stayed on his side, she on hers, a demilitarized zone of down feathers between them. Yet, it was the best sleep he had had in years. He watched her breathe. A stray lock of hair had fallen over her face. Without thinking, he reached out and tucked it behind her ear. She stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. He waited for the guilt. He waited for the crushing weight of it should be Elena. It didn't come. Instead, he just felt peace. Hi, she whispered, voice sleep-rough. Hi, Bram replied. I didn't kick you, did I? She asked, yawning. My sister always said I slept like a starfish. You stayed on your side, Bram said. Mostly. He shifted, propping himself up on one elbow. The playfulness faded. Today was the solstice ball. The entire alliance would be there. He needed to make a choice. Clara, he said. She went still. What is it? Is it Silas? No, Bram said. It's us. He looked at the ring on her finger. It had been Elena's ring. Take it off, he said. Pain flashed in her eyes. Bram, Take it off, he repeated, gently. She pulled the ring off, hands trembling, and placed it on the nightstand. Bram reached into the bedside drawer. He pulled out a small velvet box. It wasn't old. It was new. He had bought it months ago, telling himself it was for appearances. He opened it. A band of white gold, set with a sapphire, dark and deep, like the night sky. Not a diamond. Not Elena's stone. Elena is dead, Bram said, voice steady. I loved her. I will always miss her. But I am not married to a ghost. I am married to you. Her voice trembled. Bram. Tonight, he said, taking her hand and sliding the new ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. At the ball. We announce the true mating. We finish the bond. We show the pack, and Silas, that we are a unit. Unbreakable. Tears welled in her eyes. Are you sure? She asked. The pack, they still compare us. Let them, Bram growled softly. He leaned in, pressing a kiss to her forehead. They'll learn. You aren't the replacement, Clara. You're the upgrade. She glowed in the morning sun. Okay, she whispered. Unbreakable. Little did they know, Silas had already prepared his own announcement for the ball. And tonight, the bond wouldn't just be tested. It would be torn apart.
The silk was red. Not modest pink. Not bridal white. It was the color of blood, the color of fire. Clara stood at the top of the grand staircase, hand tightening on the banister. The solstice ball was a sea of black tuxedos and shimmering gowns, a kaleidoscope of pack politics and hushed whispers. With every heartbeat, the sapphire on her finger felt heavier. A promise. She wasn't the spare tonight. She was the Luna. The music swelled. She stepped down. Heads turned. Conversations died. They were expecting the ghost of Elena in pale lace. Instead, they got Clara in crimson. Bram waited at the bottom of the stairs. He looked devastating in formal blacks, his hair slicked back, eyes locked on her like she was the only source of light in the room. He didn't look at her dress with comparison. He looked at it with hunger. The fear in her gut vanished. She reached the bottom step. Bram took her hand. His grip was warm, solid. "You look." He paused, searching for the word. "Dangerous." "Is that a bad thing?" Clara teased, voice breathless. "It's the best thing," Bram murmured. He turned to the crowd. He raised a hand, silencing the orchestra. "Brothers and sisters," Bram's voice boomed, filling the cavernous hall. "Tonight, we honor the solstice. But we also honor the future. For too long, this house has been a shrine to the past. Tonight, I present to you not a replacement, but my true mate. My Luna. Clara." The room held its collective breath. This was it. The claim. Bram raised her hand to his lips. Clap. 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 A slow, rhythmic applause echoed from the back of the room. Silas emerged from the shadows near the orchestra pit. He held a stack of papers bound with black ribbon. He looked grave. Mournful. "A beautiful speech, Alpha," Silas said, voice cutting through the silence. "Truly moving. It almost makes me wish I hadn't found these." "Silas, stand down," Bram growled, stepping in front of Clara. "I cannot," Silas said, walking to the center of the floor. He held the papers up like a holy text. "I was cleaning out the archives. Looking for closure. I found Clara's old letters to her sister. The ones she never sent." Clara's stomach dropped. "I never wrote letters," she whispered. "We lived in the same house." "Did you?" Silas asked softly. He pulled a sheet from the bundle. "Because this handwriting, it is unmistakably yours. Listen." He began to read. "I hate her. I hate her perfect hair, her perfect mate, her perfect life. I wish she would just disappear. If she were gone, Bram would have to look at me. I would be the Luna. I would be the one he wants." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The handwriting, projected now on the large screens used for the slideshow, looked exactly like hers. The loop of the L. The sharp cross of the T. "Lies," Clara gasped. "Bram, it's a lie." She looked up at him. She expected rage. She expected him to tear Silas apart. In the stillness, she saw something else. Hesitation. Bram was staring at the screen. He was staring at the words "I wish she would disappear." He didn't squeeze her hand. He let it go.
The ink was black. The paper was old. Bram stared at the letters on the screen, mind reeling. He knew that handwriting. He had seen it on the marriage contract. He had seen it on the garden reports. It was Clara's. The poison of doubt seeped into his veins. She hated her. The thought whispered in his ear, sounding suspiciously like his own insecurity. Clara had always been the shadow. The ignored one. Was it so hard to believe she harbored resentment? Was it so hard to believe she wanted Elena gone? Bram? Her voice was small. Broken. He looked down at her. She looked terrified. Yet, just yesterday, Silas had warned him. She is desperate for you to look at her. Had she staged the attack in the woods? Had she planted the journal? Was this whole week a performance to win the love she claimed to have been denied? The memory of Elena's dead body flashed in his mind. Broken. Cold. If Clara had wanted this, if she had wished for this. Did you write this? Bram asked. His voice sounded like gravel grinding together. No, Clara cried, grabbing his arm. Bram, look at me. It's Silas. He's twisting it. The handwriting matches, Alpha, Silas said gently, placing the papers on the nearest table. And we found wolfsbane in her vanity drawer this morning. The same poison used on the arrow. Bram froze. Wolfsbane. In her room. The room he had just moved her out of. He could see the pain in her eyes, but he was paralyzed by the possibility that he was sleeping with the enemy. That he had betrayed Elena for the woman who wished her dead. He pulled his arm away from her grip. He saw the light go out of Clara's eyes. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She just looked at him with a devastation so deep it felt physical. You promised, she whispered. Unbreakable. Bram started, but the words stuck. Before he could speak, before he could bridge the gap of his own stupidity, Clara stepped back. Then she turned. And she ran. She ran through the crowd, a streak of red lightning. Bram took a step to follow her. Let her go, Alpha, Silas said, placing a heavy hand on his shoulder. She is fleeing guilt. We need to secure the perimeter. Bram looked at the door. Then at the letters. He didn't know what scared him more, that Clara was a murderer, or that he had just let the love of his life walk out into the night alone.
The woods were a mouth, and she was running straight into the throat. Clara tore through the underbrush, the red silk dress shredding on thorns. She didn't care. She couldn't feel the cold. She couldn't feel her feet. She could only feel the look on Bram's face. He doubted me. After everything. After the journal. After the bed. One forged letter, and he looked at her like she was a monster. It was over. There was no us. There was only the spare and the Alpha who couldn't let go of the past. She reached the clearing near the cliffs, the place she used to come to scream at the ocean when she was a child. A shadow detached itself from the tree line. Going somewhere, Luna? Clara skidded to a halt. Silas stood there. He wasn't in his tuxedo anymore. He was wearing tactical gear. And he wasn't alone. 3 rogue wolves circled behind him, eyes glowing with predatory hunger. You forged them, Clara spat, backing toward the cliff edge. The ocean roared hundreds of feet below. Of course I did, Silas smiled. It was a cold, dead smile. I've been practicing your handwriting for months. Bram is a sentimental fool. Show him a sob story about a jealous sister, and his brain shuts off. Why? Clara demanded. Why kill Elena? Why destroy him? Silas laughed, stepping closer. Elena wasn't supposed to die, Silas said, voice dropping to a conversational tone. I offered her a choice. Me. I told her I could be a better Alpha than that brooding statue she married. I told her we could rule the Alliance together. Clara gasped. She rejected you. She laughed at me, Silas snarled, mask slipping. She said I was nothing but a servant. So. I removed her. I thought Bram would break. I thought he would crumble, and the pack would turn to me for leadership. He shrugged. But he didn't break. He just moped. And then, you came along. You tried to kill me in the woods, Clara said. I tried to scare you, Silas corrected. But you are resilient. Annoyingly so. And you made Bram strong again. That, I cannot allow. He pulled a syringe from his belt. The liquid inside glowed faint green. Wolfsbane, Clara realized. Enough to stop your heart, Silas said. A tragic suicide. The guilt-ridden sister throws herself from the cliffs where she mourned. The rogues lunged. Clara fought. She kicked, she clawed, she screamed. But she was one woman in a torn dress against 3 killers. Rough hands grabbed her arms. The needle pricked her neck. Fire bloomed beneath her skin. Her legs gave out. The world went fuzzy. Silas stepped over her. He looked down, almost pityingly. "Goodbye, Clara. You really were the better twin." With a single glance to the rogues, he nodded. They dragged her to the edge. Her breath caught. She looked at the moon. She thought of Bram. "I'm sorry." They shoved her. She fell into the darkness. The wind rushed past her ears, the dark water rushing up to meet her, and then, everything went black.
The ballroom was a tomb of whispers. Bram stood frozen, staring at the open door where Clara had vanished. The red silk of her dress burned in his memory. As her footsteps faded, silence descended. "It is for the best, Alpha," Silas said soothingly, reaching for the stack of letters on the table. She was unstable. A danger to the pack. "We will send a search party to bring her back for judgment." Bram looked down at the letters. Something shifted. It was a small detail. Insignificant to anyone else. But to a wolf, details were everything. Silas had said these letters were found in the archives, that they had been written 3 years ago, hidden away in a damp box. Yet, when Bram reached out and touched the top page, his finger came away black. The ink smeared. It wasn't dry, brittle archive ink. It was fresh. Wet. It smelled of chemicals and recent intent. The world sharpened. The handwriting was Clara's, yes. But the ink was Silas's. A roar built in Bram's chest, so loud and violent it threatened to crack his ribs. He had been played. He had let a snake whisper in his ear while he pushed away the only real thing in his life. He had doubted her. He had let her run. Judgment? Bram whispered. He grabbed Silas's wrist. Silas flinched. The comm mask slipped, revealing the rod underneath. "Alpha?" Silas stammered, pulling back. "The ink is wet, Silas," Bram snarled, voice dropping to a terrifying register. "You forged them." Silas didn't apologize. He didn't beg. He yanked his arm free with surprising strength and whistled. 5 guards, men Bram realized now were loyal only to Silas, stepped forward, blocking Bram's path to the door. "She's already dead, Bram," Silas sneered, backing toward the exit. "Or she will be, by the time she hits the water. You're too late." Her name hung in the air, a final sentence. Dead. No. Bram didn't fight like a man. He didn't issue orders. He shifted. Bones snapped and reshaped in milliseconds. The tuck shredded. The massive black alpha wolf burst forth, fueled by a rage that eclipsed the sun. He assessed the traitors. He didn't stop to kill them. He plowed through them. He was a battering ram of muscle and fury. He snapped a leg, crushed a rib cage, and launched himself out the double doors into the night. The wind carried her scent. Fear. Blood. And the salt spray of the cliffs. He ran. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. Every thud of his paws was a prayer. Please. Please let her be alive so I can beg for forgiveness. But the scent trail ended abruptly at the cliff's edge. And all that was left was the roaring ocean below.
Pain was white-hot and blinding. Clara gasped, fingers scrabbling against wet, jagged rock. She wasn't dead. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was sheer, stubborn refusal to let Silas win, but she had caught a gnarled root jutting out from the cliff face 10 feet down. Her shoulder screamed. It felt dislocated. Worse, the poison was working. The wolfsbane burned in her veins like liquid fire. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her grip was slipping. The ocean crashed below, a hungry black mouth waiting to swallow her. "Let go," a voice whispered in her head. It sounded like Elena. "It's peaceful down here. You were always the spare anyway." Clara squeezed her eyes shut. "No," she gritted out. She saw Bram's face. Not the angry Alpha, but the man who had brought her fish. The man who had put a sapphire on her finger and called her unbreakable. He had doubted her. Yes. But Silas had manipulated him. Silas had killed her sister. If she died here, Silas won. If she died here, Bram would be next. She wasn't Clara the spare. She wasn't a replacement. She was the Luna. And Lunas didn't die quietly in the dark. Though her limbs felt like lead, she swung her leg up. Her heel found a crack in the stone. She pushed. A scream tore from her throat as her shoulder popped. She ignored it. She clawed at the dirt, the mud, the roots. The poison tried to drag her down. "Sleep," it said. "Fight," she answered. She reached for the next handhold. Her fingernails broke. Her dress snagged and tore, leaving her in tatters. Eventually, she felt grass. Cold, wet, glorious grass. She hooked her arm over the ledge. She hauled herself up, rolling onto solid ground, gasping, retching as the exertion made the poison spike in her blood. She lay there for a second, staring at the moon. Alive. But then, she heard footsteps. Heavy. Crunching on gravel. Silas hadn't left. He was waiting to make sure. Clara forced herself to her knees. She didn't have her wolf, the poison suppressed the shift. She didn't have a weapon. Wait. She patted her thigh. The silver dagger. She had strapped it there before the ball. It was still there. She stood up, swaying, dizzy. Silas turned around. He stood by the tree lean, lighting a cigarette, looking at the ocean. He turned at the sound of her movement. His jaw dropped. The cigarette fell from his lips. "You," he whispered. "You're supposed to be dead." Clara pulled the dagger. It felt heavy in her numb hand. She smiled. It was a terrifying, blood-stained smile. "I'm hard to kill, Silas," she rasped. "Ask my sister."
The cliff edge was empty. Bram skidded to a halt, claws digging deep furrows into the earth. He shifted back to human form, naked and shivering in the wind, ignoring the cold. "Clara," he screamed. His voice was torn away by the gale. He looked over the edge. Darkness. Spray. Death. His chest felt ripped open. The grief was instant and absolute. It was worse than Elena. This was his fault. He had driven her here. He fell to his knees. He had promised to protect her. He had failed. But then, a scent hit him. It wasn't the stale scent of death. It was fresh blood. And fear? No. Rage. Bram's head snapped up. He looked across the clearing. Through the mist, he saw a figure standing near the tree line. Silas. And facing him. Bram blinked, thinking he was hallucinating. A woman stood there. Her red dress was in ribbons. She was covered in mud. She swayed on her feet like a drunkard. But she was holding a knife. Clara. She had climbed out of the grave. Relief turned instantly into killing focus. Silas had seen her too. He was pulling a gun from his waistband. He wasn't going to make the mistake of pushing her again. Bram moved. He didn't shift. He didn't have time. He launched himself across the clearing in human form, a missile of desperate violence. "Silas!" he roared. Silas spun, firing wildly. Bang! A bullet grazed Bram's shoulder, spinning him around. He didn't stop. He crashed into Silas, tackling him to the ground. The gun skittered away into the darkness. They rolled in the mud, punches flying. Silas was weaker, but he was fast, and he had a knife of his own. He slashed at Bram's ribs. Bram ignored the pain. He slammed Silas's head into the dirt. Thud. Thud. "You touched her!" Bram screamed, fist connecting with bone. "You killed Elena. You touched my mate." Silas kneed Bram in the gut, scrambling free. He gasped for air, face a bloody mask. "She's poisoned." Silas laughed, spitting blood. "Look at her, Bram. She's dead walking." Bram froze. He looked at Clara. She had collapsed to her knees, the dagger slipping from her hand. Her skin was pale, sweat beading on her forehead. "The wolfsbane. Bram," she whispered. Her eyes rolled back. In that moment, Bram had a choice. Chase Silas, who was scrambling toward the woods to escape, or save Clara. It wasn't a choice. Bram turned his back on the killer. He ran to Clara. He scooped her up in his arms. She was burning up. "Stay with me," he begged, pressing his hand to her cheek. "Clara, stay with me. You are unbreakable. Remember?" She leaned into his touch. "He's getting away," she murmured. "Let him run," Bram vowed, lifting her against his chest. "I'll hunt him down later. Right now. I'm not losing you." She fell into the darkness, trusting, finally, that he would catch her. Bram looked at the woods where Silas had vanished. The hunt wasn't over. But the Alpha had his Luna back. And next time, he wouldn't bring mercy. He would bring hell. The forest floor was slick with mud and blood. Bram held Clara tight against his chest. Her skin was burning hot, the wolfsbane racing through her veins to stop her heart. He had to get her to the healer. He had to run. A twig snapped. It wasn't behind him. It was in front. Bram froze. Silas stepped out from behind a massive oak. He hadn't run. He knew he couldn't outrun the pack closing in from the north. He had circled back. His face was a mask of twisted, desperate hate. He held a jagged rock in one hand and his knife in the other. "If I can't have the pack," Silas hissed, eyes wild, "then you don't get to have her." Silas lunged. Bram couldn't shift. If he shifted, he would drop Clara. He was trapped in human skin, vulnerable. Bram twisted, turning his back to the attack to shield her. Schlick. The knife buried itself in Bram's shoulder. Pain exploded, white and blinding. Bram roared, knees buckling under the weight of Clara and the agony in his arm. He fell to the ground, curling around her. Pathetic, Silas spat. He kicked Bram in the ribs. "You were always weak, Bram. Elena knew it. Clara knows it. You can't even save yourself." Silas raised the rock high above his head, aiming for Bram's skull. Bram looked at Clara's face. Her eyes were closed. She looked peaceful. He accepted it. He would die shielding her. It was a good death. Suddenly, Clara's eyes snapped open. They weren't hazy. They were clear. Silver fire. She didn't scream. Between one breath and the next, her hand moved. She still had the dagger. She had never let go of it, even when she passed out. She drove the blade upward. It wasn't a clumsy strike. It was precise. It was the strike of a woman who had spent weeks sharpening that blade in the garden while everyone ignored her. The silver steel sank deep into Silas's chest, right between the ribs. Silas gasped. The rock fell from his hand, thudding harmlessly into the dirt. He looked down at the handle protruding from his heart, his expression one of utter confusion. "You," he gurgled. "I told you," Clara rasped, voice barely a whisper. "I'm the upgrade." The light faded from Silas's eyes. He crumpled backward, dead before he hit the ground. Silence roared. Bram stared at the body. Then at Clara. She smiled weakly. Her hand fell away from the hilt. "Did I get him?" she asked. "You got him," Bram choked out. Tears mixed with the rain on his face. "You saved us, Clara." "Good," she whispered. "Now, I think I'm going to sleep." Her head lolled back against his good shoulder. Bram found the strength to stand. He ignored the knife in his shoulder. He ignored the burning in his lungs. He lifted his mate, his savior, his Luna, and ran toward the lights of the manor.
The smell hit her first. Lavender. Antiseptic. And pine. Clara opened her eyes. The light was soft, filtered through sheer curtains. She blinked, expecting the damp ceiling of the guest room. Instead, she saw the high, vaulted beams of the master suite. She tried to sit up, but a heavy warmth anchored her to the mattress. She looked down. Bram was asleep in a chair pulled right up to the bedside. His head rested on the mattress, his hand gripping hers so tight his knuckles were white. His shoulder was bandaged, thick white gauze stark against his tanned skin. Her chest ached. She remembered the cliff. The fall. The poison. Silas. She squeezed his hand. Bram jerked awake. "Clara?" His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in days. He looked wrecked, dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his jaw. But when he saw her eyes open, the relief that washed over his face was blinding. "Hi," she croaked. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Hi," he whispered. He stood and leaned over her, brushing the hair from her forehead. "You scared me. You scared the hell out of me." "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be," he said fiercely. "You fought off the poison. The healer said your wolf metabolism is unusually stubborn. Just like you." Clara smiled. She looked around the room. It was different. The photos of Elena were gone. The vase of white roses was gone. In its place was a pot of wildflowers, messy, colorful, alive. "Where is?" "Silas is gone," Bram said, face hardening. "The pack knows everything. We found his journals. We found the poison stash. They know he killed Elena. And they know you killed him." There was a knock at the door. Bram straightened. "Come in." The door opened. It was Martha, the head cook. And behind her, General Kale. And behind him, half the pack council. Clara shrank back against the pillows. She wasn't ready to be judged. She was still the spare. But Martha stepped forward. She wasn't holding a tray. She was holding her apron in her hands, twisting it nervously. "Luna," Martha said. She didn't say it with disdain. She said it with reverence. "We brought you soup. Bone broth. For strength." Kale stepped forward. The big, scarred general looked at the floor, then at Clara. "You took out a traitor with a 3-inch blade while dying of wolfsbane poisoning," Kale grunted. He placed a fist over his heart and bowed low. "I would be honored to run the ridges with you anytime, Luna." Her breath caught. They weren't looking at Elena's ghost. They were looking at the warrior who saved their Alpha. Clara realized she hadn't just survived. She had won. "Thank you," she whispered, tears pricking her eyes. Bram squeezed her hand again. He looked at his pack, then down at his wife. "Leave us," Bram ordered gently. The pack filed out, closing the door softly. The last wall between them cracked. Bram sat on the edge of the bed. He traced the scar on her arm where the cliff root had cut her. "I love you," he said. He didn't hesitate. He didn't qualify it. Her heart skipped. "You loved her," Clara said, needing to be sure. "I did," Bram nodded. "But I was protecting a memory. With you? I'm building a future. I don't want a replacement, Clara. I never did. I just needed to wake up." He leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a promise sealed in breath and blood. She kissed him back, finally home.
The graveyard was quiet. The storm had passed days ago, leaving the sky a brilliant, washed-out blue. The air was crisp, smelling of turning leaves and damp earth. Bram stood in front of the marble headstone. Elena Thorne. Beloved wife and Luna. He waited for the pain. He waited for the crushing guilt that usually buckled his knees when he came here. It didn't come. Instead, he felt a quiet sadness. A fond memory of a girl who loved sunshine and soft things. She hadn't deserved to die. But she was at peace now. Justice had been served. "We caught him, Bram said softly to the stone. "He won't hurt anyone else." He felt a hand slide into his. Clara stood beside him. She was wearing a thick wool coat, cheeks pink from the wind. She wasn't wearing black. She was wearing deep blue, the color of the sapphire on her finger. He looked at the two of them. The grave and the woman standing next to it. The past and the present. Clara placed a single white rose on the stone. "Rest well, sister," she whispered. "I've got him now. I'll take care of the pack." The wind shifted, sounding like a sigh released from the trees. Bram turned to Clara. She looked up at him, eyes bright and clear. There were no shadows in them anymore. "Ready to go?" she asked. "Ready," Bram said. He took her hand, interlacing their fingers. He realized he hadn't looked back at the grave as they turned away. They walked down the hill, toward the manor that was finally a home. Bram's hand drifted from her waist to rest gently on her stomach. Clara stopped. She looked at him, a secret smile playing on her lips. She covered his hand with hers. "You know?" she asked. "I'm a wolf," Bram grinned, the joy making him look 10 years younger. "I can smell the change. 2 heartbeats." She laughed, a sound like music. "A new start," she said. "A new legacy," Bram corrected. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long golden shadows across the grass, they walked back to the pack house. He had sworn he would never love her. But the love he found was stronger than any vow. It was forged in fire, tested in blood, and sealed with the truth. He didn't have a replacement. He had his soulmate. And he let it happen. The end.